What if Better Call Saul was set in Utopia? Jimmy McGill is a small-time con man who makes a decent living, hustling people in the seedy underbelly of society. He lives in a world where cops are honest, politicians aren't corrupt, and everyone gets what they deserve. At least that's what Jimmy thinks until he meets a mysterious stranger named Saul Goodman. Saul is a criminal defense attorney who specializes in getting clients off on technicalities. He's slick, he's fast-talking, and he's always one step ahead of the law. And when he sets his sights on Jimmy, he quickly becomes the target of the authorities. As the two men become embroiled in a cat-and-mouse game with the police, they're forced to team up to take down a common enemy. But as Jimmy gets deeper into the world of crime, he starts to realize that there's more to Saul than meets the eye. So let's imagine that Better Call Saul took place in a world where everything was perfect, where the sun shone every day, the birds sang, and the beer flowed like water. How would this show have played out? Would it have been just as funny and entertaining? Or would it have fallen flat without the gritty realism of the original setting? Well, first off, we can say with absolute certainty that the show would have been very different. The entire premise of Better Call Saul is that Jimmy McGill, played by Bob Odenkirk, is a small-time con man who's trying to make it big in the criminal underworld. But what if Jimmy lived in a world where there was no crime? No, seriously, what if there was no crime at all? The whole show would have been pretty boring. There wouldn't be much to it. Jimmy wouldn't really have any opportunities to con people if everyone was honest and trustworthy. And let's be real, that's kind of the whole point of the show. It's a character study of a man who's not very good at being honest and trustworthy. Plus, the show is called Better Call Saul, not Better Call Jimmy, the Honest. And if there's one thing we've learned from Breaking Bad, it's that you don't mess with the title of the show. It's like one of the 3 pillars of storytelling, along with killing off the second banana in the second episode and never explaining the ending. But what if we dialed it back a little bit? What if we made it so that Jimmy still had opportunities to con people, but everyone was generally just a little bit nicer? Well, that actually sounds like an interesting concept. Imagine Jimmy McGill trying to hustle someone in a world where everyone's just a little bit nicer. What would that look like? Would people even fall for his tricks if they were all, I don't know, living their best life and spreading nothing but kindness? Maybe Jimmy would have to up his game, become more creative with his cons. Maybe he'd have to start wearing a hat and using fake mustaches again. After all, if everyone's an honest, trustworthy person, then you have to be dishonest and untrustworthy to get one over on them. And while we're at it, let's imagine what the other characters would be like in this world. Mike Ehrmantraut, for example, would probably still be a fixer, but instead of working for the cartel, he'd be working for the city council, making problems go away. Gus Fring would still be a ruthless businessman, but instead of selling drugs, he'd be selling organic, free-range chicken. And Walter White, well, he wouldn't be cooking meth. Instead, he'd be a high school chemistry teacher who's just trying to provide for his family. But what about Saul Goodman? What if Saul was still a criminal defense attorney, but everyone was nicer? Well, I think Saul would be a public defender. He'd be the kind of guy who takes on cases pro bono, because he believes in giving back. He'd still be slick and fast-talking, but he'd use those skills to help people, not hurt them. And Jimmy, well, Jimmy would probably still be a con man, but he'd be the kind of guy who targets rich, corrupt businessmen. He'd be Robin Hood in a lawyer's suit. It might not be Better Call Saul, but it'd be something. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out my other content. I have a lot of videos about movies and TV shows that you might enjoy.